Well, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart is finally out on the PlayStation 5, and whether you're lucky enough to have one of the next-gen consoles and want to know how it looks and feels before you buy the game, or you're an outsider looking in hoping or wondering whether or not this proves what next generation can do, Jules and I have played the first couple of hours of the brand new game, so I'll throw it to you straight away, Jules. Obviously, graphics were always going to be huge with this brand new PlayStation 5 game. Straight off the bat, what are your impressions?
Well, the pressure was on for Insomniac and PlayStation to produce something that was going to blow us away. And I've got to say, they've definitely hit the margin and exceeded my expectations.
Obviously, there's a couple of different ways to play this game. I mean, the animation in any of the modes is second to none. It's really at Pixar levels, but you've got a couple of different ways you can play. What are you currently on? Because there's performance ray tracing, performance mode, which does 60 frames per second, and then also fidelity mode. So I'm curious to know what you're on.
I've been playing on performance ray tracing. Ray tracing is something that's, I don't know, I guess it is next gen. So I've been really impressed so far. What about you?
Well, I actually started on performance ray tracing too, which is the same setting that I used in Spider-Man Miles Morales, which I think was really necessary there, where there wasn't as much of a need for the ray tracing because the world was so much bigger and Spider-Man moves so much faster than Ratchet does that I really felt like I needed the 60 frames per second. But I've got to say, when I booted up Rift Apart, I mean, my expectations were huge. They were high because, I mean, every single trailer for this game has looked incredible. And I had performance ray tracing on, and straight away I thought something looks different. Something looks a little off. I don't know whether it's the textures or the resolution or the crowd density, but I wasn't feeling it. And literally 30 seconds in, I hit pause, swapped it over to fidelity mode, and I have not looked back since. I haven't noticed the drop in frame rate. I just think the picture looks absolutely excellent. And either way, it runs at such a stable 30 frames per second. It's not like you feel as though the game is chugging along. So that to me has just been perfect, absolutely perfect. And I hope you get to try it out as well. Obviously, the first couple of levels are very different from one another. You and I are only a couple of hours in each, and we don't want to give away too many spoilers, but I mean, what have you thought of the story so far? For me, it threw me into gameplay so quickly. I feel like from the moment you start, it's very hard to put the controller down because it's high action all the time.
Well, I don't know about you, but over the last week I went through and I replayed the 2016 self-titled Ratchet & Clank game, and it honestly feels like I've just continued playing that game, but it has been enhanced greatly graphically, and the stories tie together perfectly. Not that you need to play the first game, but just from what I've seen so far, they've really matched it up well.
I haven't played that game in like 5 years. I barely remember it, even though I platinumed it. And so I got to say, you definitely don't need to play it to play this one. It definitely stands on its own, even a couple of hours in. I really was interested in the fact that they've got two different sides of Ratchet in him and this brand new Lombax Rivet, who's like a female version of Ratchet from another dimension. Can I ask what you've thought of that so far? Because I don't know how far you're in, but I've sort of played one mission with Ratchet, one mission with Rivet, and they're very similar. They don't feel like different characters.
They do feel like the same character, but I feel like she's got her own personality, while it's kind of matched with Ratchet's for reasons that will be explained as we play. But I feel like they needed to add this extra step. You know, there's only so many games with the same character you can do. I mean, Ratchet & Clank is a series that's been going on for decades. So you really had to take it to the next level, add something different, test the waters, and I feel like they've done that really well by adding in Rivet.
I think that's going to bring a lot of people in as well. We've already spoke about the graphics. Obviously, the load times are huge on PlayStation 5, and this game is built around that in a way no other game has been before, given that you can shift dimensions and travel to different worlds in the levels in an instant, and you can be grinding on a rail in one world and then thrown to an next. I mean, they really go hard on this in the opening sequence, Jules. I mean, what was your thought on that? Obviously, that's a linear showcase rather than how it actually works in moment-to-moment gameplay. But have you been impressed? I mean, I haven't noticed a single frame of loading from start to finish, which is remarkable.
Well, I guess we were given this expectation when they showed off the game a while back, and I mean it is exactly as they showed us. You going along, a rift opens up, you go through it, you're in a different world or different dimension, and then you change into another one seamlessly. There isn't any loading times. I guess there has to be something working in the background because, as you said, it does feel a bit linear. You are just kind of moving in the one spot. A rift will open up, you go through it, experience this thing around you. There's got to be this, you can't time them yourself, if you know what I mean.
Exactly. It certainly feels a little bit choreographed. Apologies, my baby just wants a cuddle. But it doesn't feel like you can skip a dimensional rift or go into one to avoid an object. It all feels very structured, which I think is fine. I'm only a couple of hours into the game, so I haven't thought it grates on the experience or detracts from it in any way, shape or form. But that is just something to note, that it's not necessarily an open world where these rifts give you a lot of player agency and choice. It's just not really a factor. But that being said, the worlds are gorgeous. The ray tracing really brings them to life in different ways. And I mean, the fact that they've got ray tracing in Rivet and Ratchet's eyes just sort of boggles my mind. But I mean, graphical fidelity aside, the game is designed really well. I personally wish that, I mean, I know they've got different personalities, but do you think that it would have been better if they had split Rivet and Ratchet in terms of their guns and their gameplay a little bit more as well?
Well, I guess Ratchet and Clank, the game's always been known for having a lot of weapons and a lot of variety of weapons. And to all of a sudden give, like if they were to give certain guns to Ratchet and certain guns to Rivet, I don't think that would play well with them, with the theme. So I understand why they've included them both sharing their own inventory. The other thing I did notice as well is the weapon upgrading system. It's almost identical to the previous game. So that's another thing that kind of makes it feel like it's a continuation from the previous title.
Obviously, I mean, we've spoken about load times, we've spoken about graphics, but you know, another great feature of the PlayStation 5, something that took a lot of people by surprise, was that brand new DualSense controller. I personally really haven't noticed it too much in this game, besides a couple of different feelings in the triggers when you're using different guns. But Jules, you were quite, you've mentioned to me off camera that you were quite surprised by one scene in particular. I mean, I felt footsteps, but beyond that, it's really just been gunplay for me. But you've noticed it a bit more?
Yeah, well, I guess we've kind of, like the PlayStation's been out for, PlayStation 5 rather, has been out for a little while now. So we've had our fair share of games that utilize the controller, the adaptive triggers and that sort of thing. But I don't think I've played one where it immerses you in the environment that you're in. Like there's this one scene where you go into a room and the music is pumping, and you can just feel that in your hands. It feels like you are in that room. I mean, you know, you're on the couch, but it's much more immersive than, you know, just a little vibration here and there.
Oh, I couldn't agree more. And I suppose it all comes down to a complete package, right? I mean, Insomniac, the developer behind Ratchet and Clank, it's quite remarkable to think that they launched 6 months ago with the Spider-Man game at the arrival of the PlayStation 5, and they've been able to pump out Ratchet and Clank so quickly. Spider-Man was great, so is this. And I mean, it had a lot of expectation on its shoulders. I mean, this is really the first party PlayStation 5 game that isn't a remake, that is developed in-house, that isn't also tied to the PlayStation 4. So I mean, a lot of expectation was on this game to sort of deliver a glimpse into what true next generation was. Jules, does it deliver so far for you? I know you're only a couple of hours in.
From what I've played so far, that they have definitely reached their target. They showed us what they were going to do, and they've done it and more. So I'm thoroughly impressed with the game.
Me too. I've got a lot more of the game to go, and if my little puppy would stop squeaking on his toy, I might be able to wrap this one up. I've been working from home, right? Geez, if only these kids would go back to school. I've thought the game has been absolutely sensational so far. I've been impressed by the animation. I've been impressed by the camera work and the gameplay, which is still very similar to the 2016 game, the original Ratchet and Clank sort of movie game tie-in, the reboot on PlayStation 4. But I do think as a showcase of what the PlayStation 5 can do, it is super impressive. And it's almost the game that you would point people to straight away. If they were just getting a PlayStation 5, I personally would say buy Ratchet or buy Spider-Man Miles Morales to see what this new machine can do. And I look forward to playing more. That's all I can say at this point. It is well worth your money, but we have to say that we didn't buy this. Thank you, PlayStation, for sending us through a review copy. It's been great to get an early hands-on so we can let people know what we think of the game. And for ongoing updates and our full review, hopefully in about a week's time, you can keep it locked to 9news.com.au.